Hello, and welcome to the top custom Hearthstone cards of the week. This episode is brought to you by GagaSisterhood.com, but more on that later in the video. Starting off with number 5, we have Jean-Claude Van Damme, 5 mana 6/5 that can be placed on either player's board, and has the battle cry, pushes out minions 2 spaces to each side of this card. So the card text is a little abstract, so I think it's best shown in-game. And luckily my pal Ben Brode sent me over some footage of this card in action. I had no idea that Blizzard's animation team was hit so hard, so I understand why they had to raise pack prices in Europe now. Let's say your opponent has a board of minions like so. You can use Jean-Claude as a removal for these minions. So if you put Jean-Claude here, it will push Emperor Thaurissan, Ice Bitch, and Kazaka's Calendar to the side of the board and destroy them. Jean-Claude counts as just one minion, so if you combine it in a brawl, it's not like your opponent would end up with a Jean-Claude foot. But let's say you do actually use this in a control warrior. Even with Tank Up, it's a 6/5, so if you don't get rid of it, it will still cause damage over time. Another setback is because Jean-Claude can't destroy any minions in the middle of the board, your opponent will actually be able to play around it by keeping a crucial minion in the center. Maybe this card needs higher stats and maybe it's too much of a late game card, but I think this is especially good for J decks. We now live in a meta where giving your opponent a 6/5 is actually better than letting them spawn a 10/10 for 1 mana. So, in addition to, clearing most of your opponent's board, the Jean-Claude will take up space and limit your opponent to only 2 other minions on their board, so you'll have a few more turns until you concede. At number 4, we have a spell called Dig. Give a minion stealth, and at the beginning of your next turn, deal this minion's attack to a minion. That is a lot of minions, but basically, this is like Dispatch Kodo, but it doesn't require hand buffing, and actually it's kind of slower, but I think this synergizes great with Cold Blood, and it would help Rogue remove big threats, which it needs. So basically how it would work is, you'd cast the spell, and at the beginning of your next turn, you'll be prompted to target a minion, so you wouldn't be able to do anything before you apply this damage. So this means if your opponent doesn't have any minions on the board, you'll have to damage one of your own minions, and maybe even the minion that you put this spell on. Like I said, I think this would be a good removal. I think it's pretty slow, and I don't think Stealth Rogue is really there yet for the class to work, but I think it's a good idea regardless. Next up we have Gang Boss. I hope my pronunciation was correct. And it's a rip off of Imp Game Boss completely, but the thinking is since Imp Game Boss is rotating out of standard, and it's a pretty powerful card for Warlock, I thought I'd want to share the love to the Murloc Paladin and give them an overall strong card. Paladin's losing any fin, so I'd love to see Murloc Paladin stay, but instead of it being like a mid-range burst damage deck, if it could transition to a control deck, I think that would be kind of cool too. I don't think this card alone is powerful enough, but I think it could definitely help those suffering through the quest to play 75 Murlocs. And at number 2, we have passive-aggressive Golden Chicken, name pending. Maybe I need a better name for that one, but similar to Angry Chicken, it's a 1/1 with Enrage +5, but the catch is not only is it a legendary, not only is it an exclusively gold card, but each time you hit a hero with 6 or more attack, Blizzard donates 1 cent to charity. There's Hearthstone statistics sites out there, so I'm sure Blizzard would be able to keep track of this stat. I don't really know how the taxing would work because I don't know if this is considered like a transaction of money. I wouldn't think so, but if that all worked out, there's not really much of a risk for Blizzard because the card would be super rare to unpack, it would be really expensive to craft, and just not a good card overall in the game, and it would be super tempting to turn into dust. So basically it would be good publicity for Blizzard, it could benefit a good cause, probably make Blizzard some money still, which they love doing. It would create special in-game moments, and most importantly, it would get chickens played in Hearthstone. And for number 1, we have a card that looks very similar to Pint-Sized Summoner, but instead it has the battle cry, change your hero to Ben Brode.
Stop this madness.
Thank you for watching this week's Top Custom Hearthstone cards. This week's episode was brought to you by GagaSisterhood.com, where grandmas bond, brag, and benefit. It's a social network site for grandmas which explores what it means to be a grandma today, both the joys and the challenges. They just told me to read one of my favorite excerpts from one of their articles. What Mothers-in-Law Wish They Could Tell Their Daughters-in-Law is a great one by Donnie Davis. A brand new grandma is standing in her daughter-in-law's kitchen, protectively cradling her tiny granddaughter. She's in pure rhapsody as she drinks in the yummy smells of the newborn baby girl, imagining her saying, "Grandma, I know you. I love you already. Then her daughter-in-law shatters the euphoric moment by screeching, "Don't hold her like that!" Sorry. And grabs the infant from her grandmother's arms, placing her in her infant seat. It doesn't matter that the woman has raised 4 children on her own, or that she would sacrifice every part of her being for this new child, or that she had purchased the seat that now substituted for her embrace. This woman knew there was nothing she could say because once you become a grandmother, you find yourself virtually speechless. To alienate your daughter-in-law might result in losing access to the child. To the child! Inspiring. If you sign up for a year using the code PUNTI, you'll get 10% off and a picture of my grandma. That's GagaSisterhood.com. Thank you for watching once again, and I'll see you next week.